Thank you for joining. My name's Judy Loferno. I'm with Headquarters Physical Therapy, and I work on the wellness side of our business. We do corporate wellness, we do physical therapy, nutrition coaching, and more. My job is business director, and that just means I get to work with all of our clients on the wellness side and their employees, and I help put together wellness programs. We're really excited today to bring to you a presentation on mental health and work-life balance. And the other thing I wanted to mention is it's real important is to please make sure you mute yourselves. Even if you're with a group in a large room, it makes it easier for everybody to hear. We have two ways that you can ask Carrie questions. One is through the chat feature, but you are also welcome, and Carrie will let you know, to stop her at any time and ask some questions. And so without further wait, I'd like to introduce you to Carrie Fox.
Okay, see if I can change the screen. There you go. Awesome. Thank you, Judy, for the introduction. Like she said, my name is Carrie Fox, and full disclosure, this is my second wellness presentation with them. So I have a little experience, but still, yeah, just figuring out what giving a webinar looks like. So bear with me. Just a little introduction on myself. I am currently a licensed professional counselor associate down here in Eugene, Oregon. I graduated from Bushnell University with my master's in clinical mental health counseling. And so now I'm working at Willamette Sky Counseling, which is a private practice. Love it there. I have a full caseload of clients that I see individually. I have past experience working at a residential treatment center for traumatized youth down here called Jasper Mountain Center. I've worked at the Eating Disorder Center of Eugene, and then also at the Relief Nursery, which is, they kind of provide holistic care for families, children, mental health, childcare, all that kind of stuff. So I am very passionate about mental health, wellness. I'm very excited to give this talk. Like Judy said, if you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. I cannot see everyone's screen right now, so yeah, you are more than welcome to just unmute and shout out a question, have me stop at any time. I think that'd be either that or the chat would be the best way to do that. And hopefully we'll make this an interactive experience. I'll have a few questions for you throughout, just so it doesn't feel as much like a lecture, and we can kind of get to know each other a little bit better. All right, so just an overview before we get into things. So the presentation will be on mental health and work-life balance. These are just a few points that I'll be going over throughout. We'll start with why work-life balance matters. I just recently added this, but burnout, I could probably give a whole presentation on burnout itself, but we'll go over kind of things to look out for, signs, symptoms, and then we will get into what is work-life balance. And then dimensions of wellness. We'll talk about proactive coping strategies, and then coping strategies themselves. And then we'll get into grounding and mindfulness, depending on how much time we have left, because this is about an hour. And then we'll leave some room for questions. I do have a few just backup experiential activities that I could run everyone through, which are pretty cool. A little bit of mindfulness and just different things that we could do, just depending on how much time is left. Alrighty, so this is kind of my icebreaker slide. When I was thinking of what do I want to put in this, I asked myself, well, where do we find out or learn what work-life balance looks like? And so these are a few of my favorite shows still to this day. We have SpongeBob, Grey's Anatomy, Office, and then I just picked a few pictures from Google showing parents and their children. And so I thought this really demonstrated kind of the different areas where we can learn growing up what work-life balance looks like or doesn't look like. We see shows, movies. We see kind of what our caregivers or parents do or don't do, how they take care of themselves. We hear messages in the media, online, and this can really shape how we go into the work field ourselves. How much time we spend working, self-care, what we do outside of work. And so also I kind of wanted to test out the chat feature. So if everyone is open to it, I know some of you are in larger groups, so it might be a little more difficult, but I thought we could just start by either, and you can of course shout it out, but what is your biggest stressor right now that is impacting your mental health? So if you feel comfortable, of course you don't have to, but if you just kind of want to put that in the chat, you could either send it to me directly and I will read it out, or put it in the chat feature so we can all see it. Okay, so we have the first one, not being able to work in person with
people.
workers.
Sí, ¿no te contestó? ¿Sí te contestó? Ah, pues vámonos.
Yep, Zoom fatigue. Yes, I feel that one. Stepping beyond, let's see.
Ahí le dejo que hable.
Masters into my career field, handling multiple deadlines, constantly interviewing and hiring new employees, not being supported.
Sí.
Yeah, these are all.
Entiendo perfecto, perfecto. Pero como no lo practico, ya hasta se me olvida. Luego digo, ay, ¿cómo se dice?
And then if anyone wants to add any at other times, yeah, I'll put them out if I can. Yeah, I definitely, I also feel a lot of these stressors. It is really hard, both during COVID, post-COVID. I also don't get to see my coworkers a lot, see a lot of clients on Zoom. And yeah, it can be very stressful. And we have a new one, juggling school versus work, balancing my stress with my husband's stress once we get home from work. Yeah, absolutely. Not only do we kind of take on our own stress, but those around us sometimes, children, partners, friends, and even coworkers. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you for participating. Okay. All right, so now we will get into, I'm sorry, I'm just gonna interrupt. Do you mind, I'm not sure who it is, but could you all just mute yourselves just because we have some kind of back noise? Okay, I think we're good. All right, so getting into why this topic matters. Start off with some statistics, and of course there's so many other.
Oh, márcale, a ver si ya está.
Into
¿Quieres?
a slide. Yes, let me see. Awesome, thank you for that suggestion. Okay. Perfect, okay, so now getting into this, why mental health and work-life balance matters. So nearly 40% of adults employed full-time in the US reported working at least 50 hours a week. 18% work 16 hours or more. As our stress levels rise, our productivity and overall wellness are impacted. People who feel like they have a good work-life balance in their lives are shown to be both more satisfied with their job and life. They experience fewer symptoms of depression and anxiety and are more productive at work. And so employers and employees might associate long working hours, being very busy, with increased productivity. However, studies have shown that workers and it kind of varies depending on the individual, but hit a certain number of hours where their productivity actually begins to decrease based on stress levels, burnout, things like that. And then this can actually increase the risk for mistakes. And then in certain workplaces, increases the risk of injuries. And so in a recent study by Mental Health America, sorry, let me go back. They found that 1 in 4 Americans describe themselves as being super stressed. More than 2/3 of people have had their sleep negatively impacted by workplace issues. And then over 75% of people are afraid of getting punished for taking a day off for their mental health. All right, so getting into burnout, and this definition is provided by the World Health Organization, but burnout being a syndrome conceptualized resulting from chronic workplace stress that has not been successfully managed. So we are all going to, at some point or another, experience some form of stress in the workplace, but burnout really being chronic. So the stress is either constant or has gone on for a really long time, and either the workplace itself is not set up for employees to really be able to take care of themselves, or the employees themselves might not know what that looks like. So some other causes, just to point out, employees having unrealistic work expectations placed on them, so being in charge or having to do more than they are able to do as just one individual, micromanagement. And so with this one being employees not feeling like they have control, say, and then unclear communication in the workplace. This can both be if employees are needing to communicate an issue with an employer, not feeling like they can do so, but also unclear communication in terms of what their position actually entails. So if they're given a task to do, very unclear instructions, that can cause a lot more stress. They might be putting in a lot more work than they need to be. Isolation, which is what someone said as one of the bigger stressors, either working from home. A lot of employers have kind of cut back on how many people can be in the workplace now. And some jobs you are working on your own by yourself, and that can be really hard for people also. And then just overall lack of support, unfair treatment, either from the organization as a whole, direct supervisors or bosses, and even coworkers. Okay, and then just some signs that someone may be experiencing burnout. And of course, this is going to vary individual to individual, but the first one being physical and emotional exhaustion. So this could look like chronic fatigue. So someone having low energy, feeling tired, a sense of dread when they're going to work, experiencing insomnia, any physical symptom of anxiety, so GI symptoms, heart palpitations, excess stress, depression. Let's see, I have a few other things. Just overall tension and irritability can be one, worry, being on edge. And then the next one, cynicism and detachment. So feeling either loss of enjoyment of the job, which can sometimes trickle into loss of enjoyment outside of work with family, friends, not really finding joy in what they are doing anymore. This can also be pessimism, so negative self-talk, kind of looking at circumstances from what people would call like a glass half empty attitude, feeling like you can't count on others around you, and then just overall being detached from work, from life, from relationships, kind of just depends. And then the last sign being feelings of ineffectiveness and lack of accomplishment. And this can show up as big feelings of hopelessness for some people, lack of productivity, and then poor performance. And so this really is why it is so important to just be aware of if you are feeling stressed, if you are starting to notice signs that your stress is starting to increase, why it is so important to take care of it before it turns into burnout. And so burnout is not something that just happens overnight. It is something that happens gradually. And so that's why being aware of the signs is so important. And then, like I said before, it just varies depending on the person. So what one person, circumstances that might lead one person to feeling burnt out, maybe another might not. And then it really just exists along a continuum, kind of stress and where that line gets blurred into burnout. Okay, so the big question, what is work-life balance? So work-life balance is typically defined as the amount of time you spend doing your job versus the time you spend with your friends, family, pursuing your personal interests. And so I'll describe the kind of graphic on the bottom. So based on the definition I just gave, work-life balance is often viewed as work versus life, and that these both have to be equal or somewhat balanced. And so research and the view of what this looks like is changing to more of a holistic view. So there is more that goes into both work and life than just those two separate things. So there is relationships, there's hobbies, interests. There's so much more that goes into that. And so that's what we'll be getting into a little bit later. And then the graphic on the right kind of shows how work life and then private life can impact each other. So you have just a few, if you want to read this on your own, I'll read a few. But working environment, hours, different things like that. And then private life, family, friendships, hobbies. And so both of those really do impact each other. If your work life is not going well, it's going to go into your private life. If you're having problems in private life, that'll definitely impact how you're showing up at work. And then just like with burnout, work-life balance is individualized as well. Everyone has different values, different things they place importance on, different responsibilities at home, at work. And so in order to find work-life balance, you really have to tailor it to what is important to me and what's going to work for me. It can also vary with each job responsibilities, hours you're working, days you're working, time of the year. Some people have, and I think like retail around the holidays, around Black Friday, things pick up. So time of the year can definitely alter that, life circumstances. So if there's stressors or things going on at home, and things like that can definitely impact what work-life balance looks like. And so it's not going to look the same every single day. It's constantly going to be shifting, but it is important, and we'll get into how to balance. But to be able to be flexible with what work-life balance looks like for you. Okay, and then this specific graphic is called the 8 dimensions of wellness. So if you look up wellness in general, there are so many different models, 4 dimensions, 5 dimensions. I like this one because it is very thorough and includes a lot of different dimensions that all of us have to an extent in different parts of our lives. And so I'll just go around and read each one. And then as I do so, if you just want to reflect on, okay, how am I showing up for myself in this part of my life? How am I not showing up for myself in this part of my life? And do I even value this part? It's okay if the answer is no, or I value this a little less than this, but yeah, just kind of think and reflect about how this model fits into your life. So starting at the top and then going clockwise, the first element of wellness being emotional. So in this, the definition being 1 is coping effectively with life and creating satisfying relationships. And then financial, so satisfaction with current and future financial situations. We have the social aspect of wellness, developing a sense of connection, belonging, and a well-developed support system. We have the spiritual aspect of wellness, so expanding our sense of purpose and meaning in life. The bottom, we have occupational, personal satisfaction and enrichment derived from one's work. And then going up, we have physical, so recognizing the need for physical activity, diet, sleep, nutrition. Intellectual, recognizing creative abilities, finding ways to expand knowledge and skills. And then the last element of, or last dimension of wellness being environmental. So good health by occupying pleasant, stimulating environments that support well-being. And so I'm curious if, just looking at this model, if anything comes up for anyone. If you want to unmute, if you want to pop it in the chat. I know the first time that I looked at this, I was first surprised by how many different dimensions there were. And then how I was placing a lot of emphasis on very specific ones and almost neglecting the others. And so it really gave me a chance to kind of reassess and kind of shift my focus. And so I was able to be a little bit more, still a work in progress, but a little more balanced. All right. Okay, so we do have one in the chat. I can focus on the physical, getting more sleep. That will help with the other ways I handle other areas of this wellness wheel. Absolutely. Yeah, just thinking of, and that makes me think of kind of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like basic needs getting met. Yeah, taking care of yourself, food, shelter, all of those things. Okay, spiritual is an area I'm grappling with, figuring out where I fit and what I want to do for others and myself. Absolutely, I would agree. That's also one of the ones I noticed I was not giving as much attention to. Physical well-being is important to me as well. If this is off, most others will be off. Yeah. Okay, I'm surprised and also feeling validated by seeing environmental on here. It matters a lot to me, but I always felt like it matters too much. Yeah, absolutely. And environmental, that one, the description itself surprised me because I thought environmental, like nature, having to spend time out there, and absolutely, but also just the environment that you're in at work, at home. Is it contributing to your kind of health and well-being? Awesome. Well, thank you all for participating. Okay, and then moving on to proactive coping. And so I see proactive coping as a form of self-care. And I'm sure you've all heard the term like coping strategies or coping skills, and these are often discussed as more of a reactive strategy. So someone is dealing with something stressful, a deadline is approaching, or they're dealing with just something that they need to cope with. And so then the coping skill comes. I can do breathing, I can say no to going out and hanging out with my friends, I can maybe delegate tasks to other people. So that would be reactive. You feel the stressor and then you do something about it. Proactive being, what can you do to take care of yourself prior to stressful things happening so you're in a better place to deal with them when they come up. So research has shown that proactive strategies can be an effective way to manage future obstacles, predictable changes, and unexpected life changes. So coping strategies in general are actions we take either consciously or unconsciously to deal with stress. So some of us have things that we've done for forever that we might not notice. I know one for me would be if I get overwhelmed, I tend to isolate, or I like to be by myself, think about things. And I don't even think that I'm doing that. It just kind of happens naturally. And then consciously, like going for a walk, I can consciously make that decision to spend time outside, take my dog outside, kind of do things like that. Healthy coping strategies may not provide instant gratification, so they might not make you feel good right away, but they lead to long-lasting positive outcomes. And so some of these proactive coping strategies could be things like movement, seeking professional help, relaxation techniques, reaching out to social supports, and then utilizing problem-solving techniques. Eating chocolate. If chocolate is something that I think helps you cope with things or makes you feel better, absolutely. I'm wondering if anyone has any other proactive coping strategies that they utilize. And just thinking back to kind of the previous question, movement, exercising, getting out, financial planning, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I think planning to any extent, healthy extent, preparing ahead of time for things sets you up for success. Exercise, setting time on a calendar. Yes, definitely carving out time for this, kind of finding where does it fit into my schedule. 3-minute vacation, looking at and listening to beach scenes. Yes, I think that is such a cool idea. And that makes me think of, there are so many videos on YouTube, mindfulness, meditation, and that's not something you have to do when you're in crisis mode. You can do that any time of the day, on a lunch break, when you're going to work, kind of listening to music that you enjoy, playing with kids and pets, yes. Yeah, these are all really good ones. Okay, and then this is definitely not an exhaustive list of coping strategies, but just a few that I put together for both work and home life. And so I will go through this list, and then I'll see if anyone else has any other ideas. Feel free to just do it as I go along also. But coping strategies at work. So setting manageable goals each day, being able to meet priorities and deadlines can help us feel a sense of accomplishment and control. So it is important to have kind of bigger goals, like what am I working towards? Is it a promotion? Is it being able to give this webinar? Like that would be a really big goal. But then setting manageable goals each day. So what can I do each day so I'm working towards my goal, and also so I can see that I'm doing something. I'm actively working towards this, and being able to kind of check those boxes as we go does make us, that can help us feel that sense of accomplishment. Another one, being efficient with time at work. And so this could be breaking big tasks into smaller ones, addressing if procrastination is a problem for you. I definitely struggle with this sometimes, but what are some strategies for being able to address that? Another one that comes to mind is the concept of multitasking, which everyone has a different opinion about. But if you do have a task to get done and you are checking your phone at the same time, like, is that being as efficient as you can with your time? Maybe sometimes, maybe not all the time. Utilize work breaks given. This is really important. I know a lot of people who do just kind of blow through work breaks, eat lunch while they are also working on something. And maybe that helps get you out of the office quicker. Maybe it feels like, okay, well, I'm doing two things at once. But I just think of, if you allow yourself that break, how different of a space you will be in when you do return to work. And that's kind of one of those proactive coping strategies. And then communicating effectively. So are you getting your needs met at work? Are there things you're needing help with you can communicate? Do you need clarification? So just having an open dialogue with coworkers, bosses, and whoever it is. And then at home, some coping strategies, unplugging, which can be difficult, but it is so common nowadays that people take their work home. And sometimes this is necessary, but I just think of like checking emails if you're watching TV with your family, or taking phone calls from work on the weekend, things like that. If it is necessary, of course, continue to do that. But if you can kind of set that boundary and unplug when you get home, maybe tell yourself, okay, I'm only going to check my emails for 30 minutes. I'm only going to take this call from these hours. I'm not going to kind of XYZ, whatever that looks like for you. Dividing responsibilities at home can be helpful. And of course, this is only if there's people at home who you can have help you, cleaning, taking care of the kids, cooking, yard work, kind of all those things. Avoiding overcommitting can be really helpful. So if you are noticing, I'm really overwhelmed from the work week, but I also have this barbecue that I have to go to for the neighborhood, and I also have this play date that I committed to. Sometimes that can lead people to feeling like, okay, I'm really stretched too thin, and then it makes it harder to show up for everybody. And so kind of just assessing, when is it okay to say no? Do I actually want to do this? Do I feel obligated to do this? Those are some good questions to ask yourself. Reaching out to support if needed. So family, friends, mental health or healthcare professionals, kind of depending on what support you are needing. And then staying active, taking care of your body. Right. I would just say taking care of your body. And that looks different for everybody too. What is your body needing? Is it needing movement? Is it needing rest? Is it needing good food? And different things like that. Okay. All right. So now here are some grounding and mindfulness techniques. And so these are also forms of, they can either be proactive coping strategies or coping strategies themselves. And these have been shown to be helpful for a lot of people. Of course, they're not for everybody. And so that's why I included just a few different ones, just to kind of see how they make your body feel. Is this something I could use moving forward? Am I not really interested in this at all? And so I thought I could lead us through this. And if you want to participate, you can. If you just kind of want to listen to the description and then practice on your own later, that's okay. So the first one is called square or box breathing. And so that's what the diagram on the right is showing. And it's a good way to visualize this activity. And so I'll talk you through it before I lead you through it. But the how you do it is you will breathe in. So looking at the top, breathe in for 4 seconds, and then going down the box, hold for 4 seconds. And then going across to the left, breathing out for 4 seconds, and then up, hold for 4 seconds. And so some people will picture this in their mind. Sometimes with the littler ones, I will print this out and have them kind of trace it with their finger. Or sometimes just the numbers themselves are helpful for people to remember. So this is something you can do at any time also. If you're in the car, if you are waiting to have a big meeting. Like, this is something that is pretty accessible. And so if anyone is open to it, I will just lead us through a few different, a few cycles of this. So if you want to just get comfortable in whatever position you're seating, you do not have to close your eyes, but if you feel comfortable doing so, you can. And if not, something that can be helpful is just kind of fixing your eyes down at a certain point, or kind of on an object that's not moving. So something that's not going to be distracting. Okay, and so then just follow along as I kind of walk you through this. So if everyone could breathe in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, breathe out, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4. We'll do it again. So breathe in, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, hold. I think I did that wrong. 2, 3, 4, breathe in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, breathe out, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that one again is called square or box breathing. And then the next one is another breathing technique, and it's called 4-7-8. And so it kind of uses a similar 4 seconds will be how long you breathe in, 7 seconds is how long you're holding it, and then 8 seconds is how long you are breathing out. And so kind of the science or reasoning behind this one is that when our body is hyper aroused, when we're stressed out, when we're needing to be grounded, the longer you breathe out compared to the amount of time you breathe in, it activates the part of your nervous system that relaxes you. So this type of breathing tells your body, okay, we're not in danger, we are okay, and it starts to calm down physically. And so this one can be a little bit difficult because it does have you hold for 7 seconds. And I personally think that's a really long time. It does work for some people. And so what I will do is hold or breathe in for 4, and then I'll breathe out for 8. So I won't even hold in the middle. And so this one I'm going to have you all try on your own if you are comfortable, and just kind of see what feels good for me. Is it holding? Is it not holding? And a strategy for being able to keep track of counting is tapping. So you can tap on your leg, you can tap on your hand, you can tap on a table, and just counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, hold. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then breathing out for 8. So I'm just going to give just a few seconds to minutes. I'll just give a pause. So if everyone wants to, if you want to, try it out. If you want to go back to the square box breathing, that's okay too. Okay, So I'm just going to have everyone, whenever you're ready, kind of return your attention to the screen. And then if anyone does want to give feedback on how either the box breathing was for you, or if you did try the 4-7-8, how that was. And again, those are just two of the many, many different types of breathing exercises that you could do either prior to or after being kind of dysregulated or feeling stressed. And this is also something that can be really good to practice when you aren't feeling overwhelmed or stressed. And the reasoning being, if the more you do this, the more your body kind of knows, okay, when I do this, we calm down. When I do this, I'm in a good place. And it almost comes more naturally. Awesome. I'm glad you found the 4-7-8 to be relaxing. And again, you can kind of alter these numbers. These are, of course, just suggestions, but kind of finding what works for you, what feels good for your body. And also, if breathing exercises are not relaxing or not helpful, that's okay too. They do not work for everybody. Okay, so the next, I'd say this was a kind of a coping skill or grounding, but grounding techniques, and there can be so many different things that qualify as grounding techniques. And so I'm just going to give a few off the top of my head. The first one being, and something we can all practice right now, is grounding to the space you are in. So right now, if you can, and my legs were just crossed, but putting your feet on the ground and feeling how the pressure of the ground feels against your feet. If you're wearing shoes, socks, like what is that like to put your feet on the ground? How does your body feel in whatever chair you're sitting in? If you're sitting on the ground, how does that feel for your body? And then taking your hands and just kind of touching your legs. You can rub your thighs. Just kind of noticing, how does your body feel in this moment, in this space? What does the temperature of the room feel like? Is it hot? Is it cold? What do your surroundings look like around you? Are you at a desk? What are some objects you notice in the room? What are the colors or shapes you're noticing? If you have a window, what does it look like outside? All right, so that one is something that you can do at any time. So that is just grounding to the present moment, grounding your physical body to where you're at right now. And that can be helpful for some people because a lot of the times when we do get stressed and we do get overwhelmed, we are very much in our heads, in our thoughts, thinking about the past, thinking about the future, thinking 10 steps ahead. And so that technique really does get you to focus on, okay, where am I at right now and what is going on? And gets you to kind of take a moment to slow down and just notice. Another grounding technique that can be helpful for some people too is called the 5 senses. So 5 senses being, this is always hard off the top of my head, but sight, sound, taste, touch, and oh my gosh, feel, or that's touch. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna write them down. Okay, so we'll start with the first one and then I'll get them as we go. But this can be helpful too because it uses all of your different senses and gets you to focus on things outside of yourself also, which can be helpful. So the first one being sight. So if you all want to practice, like what do you notice around you? What are the different objects? What are the things you are seeing right now? And then we have sound. So are there any sounds that you're hearing? Of course, my voice as I'm talking to you, but are you noticing any other sounds in your room, in your space? Do you have air conditioning going? Are there sounds outside that you can pick up on? The next one being touch. So kind of like when I had you touch like your legs, it's just touching something around you. So noticing what does it feel like. Right now I'm touching the table, so it could be anything, but just what does that texture feel like? Is it smooth? Is it soft? Is it bumpy? Okay, and then the next one, smell. So is there anything right now that you can smell? And sometimes this is a little tricky, but if you have lotion on, if you could smell, maybe you have detergent on your shirt that you can still smell. Maybe there's a smell of food around you. Maybe the room you're in has a certain smell. And the last one sometimes can be a little tricky, but is taste. This is probably hard if you haven't eaten in a while, but is there anything that you taste? Or if you do have coffee, water, food near you, maybe tasting what that's like. And so this is also a coping skill that is pretty accessible too. You could do aspects of this wherever you go. It might be harder sometimes to do like taste. It could be hard, but this kind of gets you to use different parts of your body, get to notice different sensations, and that can be really grounding too. Really, again, gets you outside of your head, outside of whatever it is kind of that's going on internally, and gets you to focus on, okay, what is going on what is going on outside of myself? And getting to do that through different sensations, of course, activates different parts of your brain too. And some people, going back to proactive coping, what they will do is find things such as like putty, or maybe a soft material, or something that smells good, maybe like a lotion, a spray, a hand sanitizer that is relaxing smell, or even taste, like having something in your bag at your office that when you taste that, when you put it in your mouth, it's grounding. So for some people that is like a lemon drop, and for some people that is a piece of chocolate. And that is just kind of something you can do to prepare yourself for, if I'm feeling overwhelming, I can use this to help ground myself. And this is something I do with some of my younger clients also, is have them create almost like a 5 senses coping skills box. And so I'll have them find something that they like for each of these senses, and they'll put it into a box, a bag, something that they can take with them, either to school, to counseling, to mom, dad, parent, friend's house. And so they can use this whenever they need to. Okay, and then lastly, we have mindfulness. So mindfulness is also a topic that deserves a whole webinar on itself. But in short, mindfulness is defined as non-judgmental awareness of the present moment. So benefits of mindfulness being increased awareness of thoughts, feelings, and sensations in the body. With mindfulness, you can gain freedom from habitual patterns of behavior. It can help increase creativity. And then over time, the more you practice mindfulness, it can also help decrease anxiety and stress, and then increase attention. And so when I introduce mindfulness, I like to kind of bring up the metaphor of like working out a muscle. So at first, mindfulness can be really tricky because it is just paying attention to what is going on around me and not holding judgment towards it, not trying to make meaning out of what's going on. And that does not come naturally to a lot of people, myself included. And so the more you practice mindfulness, the easier it gets. Similar to working out a muscle, trying a new exercise, the more you do it, the stronger you get, the less sore you get, the more you build that muscle memory. And so with mindfulness, it can be helpful to practice, again, when you're not feeling overwhelmed, stress, just kind of carve out space for that. There's a lot of different techniques or strategies for doing so. So if you have any questions, just let me know. There are very cool videos on YouTube that are free. There's also apps. Some of them charge. Sometimes they give you a few days for free. And then there's some apps that do have kind of videos or mindfulness scripts or things that you can listen to where you don't have to pay, which huge fan of that. And so just an example of what mindfulness would look like. And again, we can practice this right now, is just kind of noticing what is going on around you, what's going on in the room. Just noticing, how are you feeling? How's your body feeling? What are thoughts that are coming up for you? Any feelings about this presentation itself? And again, just noticing, not labeling, not judging whatever comes up. Just almost being an observer to, what is going on. All right, and then I'm going to move to the next slide, which are 5 mindfulness exercises you can do anywhere. And looking at time, we don't have time to practice each of these. But we'll start with the first one being a body scan. So this is something, they do have a lot of videos, a lot of different scripts. And by that, I mean just kind of people describing how to do a body scan. And this is a really good way to just notice different parts of your body. How is it feeling? What's going on? And that is a way to practice mindfulness. Mindful seeing, being that sense that we talked about of what are you seeing around you? What does it look like? What are the colors? Is it moving? Is it still? Mindful listening, being the sound one, but what do you hear? Is it loud? Is it quiet? Kind of asking yourself questions like that. Mindful breathing. So kind of like the breathing exercises that we did. But with mindful breathing specifically, like if you do notice tightness, if you do notice it's maybe your breath is more shallow than you'd like it to be, just noticing that, not trying to fix it, not trying to judge, not getting upset if you lose track of the counts, but just kind of noticing, how does my body feel when I'm breathing? What is that sensation like? Am I breathing from my chest or my belly? And then the 5 senses exercise being the one that we went through. with the 5 different senses. Okay, so now I have time for, we have time for questions, comments, feedback. And at this point, if you do want to, I see we have one in the chat. Okay, no worries. Yes, and of course, I know everyone has different things too, so if you do need to leave. Yeah, at this point, you can unmute yourself if you want to share out loud. If you feel more comfortable doing it in the chat, that's okay too. Okay, and then as we're waiting, I'll just like skip ahead one slide and then go back. So this is my contact information. I know this is being recorded. And so if you do have a chance to look back, if you want to, if you have any questions that come up later on, if you want any of the resources I mentioned, my sister and I also have an Instagram, so put that on there. You do not have to follow us by any means, but yeah, that's my contact information. I'd be happy to answer any questions or anything. And also, if you do have to hop out at any time, we do have until like 1:15 to answer questions or anything. But if you are heading out earlier than then, I just want to thank you for attending this webinar. I really do appreciate the participation. I was very nervous about that, but this was an incredible group. Yeah, I loved seeing all of your feedback, and I hope that you each were able to take something away from this. Yes, I agree with Judy. Thank you for joining. Okay, so now I'm looking at the chat. Yeah, thank you for the positive feedback. Big part of this seems to start with awareness. Is that something you'd agree with? A critical part of this work? Yes, I am a huge proponent of awareness. I think in order to create change, we do have to be aware of, I mean, what are we wanting to change? Where are we wanting to see growth or something different in our life? And so specifically with this talk, mental health and work-life balance, I would just encourage everyone to reflect. Like, what does my work-life balance look like? Am I happy with it? Are there areas where I'd like to see improvement? What does that look like? Am I noticing any signs of burnout? How am I spending my time outside of work? And so, yeah, awareness, reflection, just paying attention, being curious. And then from there, once you have that information, that's where you really can create change, have conversations, practice implementing different things. Yeah, great question though. So, yeah, and thank you all for coming. I know you're a bigger group. Okay, so I'll give a few more, just a little bit more time if anyone does have questions that you either want to send me directly or send into the group chat. I'll just give a little bit more time if people are kind of formulating those questions, but if there are no questions after that, then we will end this meeting a little early. So you are welcome to hop off whenever. And then, yeah, if you are wanting the recording, I imagine just reach out to Judy and she'll be able to get that for you. Okay, so right now it looks like there are no other questions. And so, yeah, we are going to end the meeting a little bit early. Again, thank you all for attending. And I hope you do have a great rest of your day. Feel free to reach out again if you have any more questions or things that come up after this.